Hi, I'm Dixie. I am owner of North Acre Life Enhancement, a holistic and alternative mental and life coaching program. I provide individuals with education and coaching services to learn how to holistically and naturally improve their lifestyle and make changes to live a healthy, happy life, and to manage any mental health and emotional issues more holistically and naturally. I do not work with anyone who is in crisis. If you are in a crisis situation, please contact a licensed professional. And, that's just going along with I am also not a medical professional. I have gone through different types of training and education that, allows me to provide the education on different topics. And I hope that you can use these to advocate for yourself and to collaborate with a coach like myself and, your medical and mental health professionals that you might already be interacting with. So just to get us going, how many of you have heard the terms, I've got butterflies in my stomach, or I've got a knot in my stomach, or I have this gut feeling, or it's gut wrenching, or, I just can't stomach it? Well, there's a reason for that. And that is because our gut is our second brain. And hundreds of years ago, and even in some cultures today, it is still acknowledged for how important of a role it plays in our emotions. Ayurvedic medicine, I can, for some reason, just botched that up, but they definitely focus a lot on how different types of food impacts moods and behaviors. But today we are just going to be focusing a little bit on just basic information just to get you started, because there is a lot of stuff out there on gut health and the gut-brain axis. And we have seen in the last century a lot of changes to our food sources. Industrialization and urbanization have really changed how and what we ate. And you can see that more and more people are seeking out more holistic and natural ways of obtaining their food. And with good reason, because the more unadulterated our food is, the healthier we are going to be. Not just physically, but also emotionally and mentally. And, one of the reasons why what we eat is so important is because of so many of our neurotransmitters being created in our gut. 95% of serotonin is formed in the gut. So serotonin is our mood neurotransmitter. It contributes to well-being and happiness, helps us with our sleep cycle and our digestive regulation. And that's a whole other topic, the sleep and digestion. They go hand in hand. And it would make sense if serotonin is involved in that. So that's for another day. But our gut-brain axis is bidirectional. So they communicate through the vagus nerve. And I know that's another thing that's going around. There's lots of talk about the vagus system and the vagus nerve. But the vagus nerve provides a bilateral communication between our stomach, our gut system, and our brain. It's like a phone line. So it helps to communicate different things, our emotional state, immune response. It also helps control digestion, heart rate, and respiratory rate. And when you think about it, if you are experiencing some sort of accelerated, intense emotion, then we very frequently experience, accelerated heart rate, accelerated breathing. Or if we are facing, if we're in a state of sadness and depression, then those things sometimes will slow down. You might be finding yourself eating less. You might find yourself sleeping more. So that is because of how and what our vagus nerve is communicating to our brain. And the vagus nerve is a huge part to the ENS, our enteric nervous system. And the enteric nervous system, or ENS as I'm going to refer to it, is really what is called the second brain. And it is one of the first things that is developed in utero. So it's one of the first things that we develop as a human being is this enteric nervous system. And, it's interesting because that means that it's the precursor of the brain and the spinal cord, and the stomach and the brain are made out of very similar tissue because it's all created at one time. The NS contains approximately 100 million neurons that within at least 18 functional classes. So that's a lot of communicating, a lot of stuff going on. And it, as I mentioned, it controls digestion, swallowing, how we break down food, creating different neurotransmitters. And we also have what is called the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which regulates our stress response. So our stress response and our gut health, it goes hand in hand because our gut is really our first line of defense for our immune system. A lot of people have probably heard about inflammatory responses, or it's an inflammatory, disease. And that is stemming from our gut. If we are in a constant state of stress, whether it is emotional stress, then our body is going to that immune response button is just going to be held down. And there's other types of stress that we face that we might not even realize. We have the environmental stress. Right now, the majority of the country is under heat advisories. That is an environmental stress. Other stressors that we don't really consider, how it impacts us is what is going on in our communities and in the world, and how we are constantly bombarded by it, whether it's on social media, news, radio. We are constantly seeing these things, and it is creating a nation of people who are in essence experiencing secondary post-traumatic stress because of what they are being repetitive, what they are seeing over and over again, even though it's not happening to them. So those are just some ways of how and we may experience stress on a day-to-day basis. So why the HPA axis is important is because that is where we have adrenaline formed, because that's part of our adrenal glands. So also want to work on reducing stress to reduce that inflammation in your system. So, and your inflammatory response. And I mentioned that our gut is part of the first response system for our immune system. And that is where we are going to bring in our microbiome. So our microbiome is gut microbiota. And it is microbes that include bacteria, viruses, lower and higher eukaryotes and fungi. And they belong to all different types of species within a large majority of our gut. And they all play a vital purpose. Whether it is breaking down certain types of, enzyme, proteins and creating different types of enzymes. It's all very, very important. So just going back to environmental stressors. When we have an environmental stressor, that might be, if you are in an area that has experienced a lot of wildfires and there is a significant amount of smoke that you're breathing in, that is going to, when you breathe in, you're breathing in through your nose and your mouth. And a lot of times, some of that, it does make its way down into your stomach. Your stomach has all of those bacteria and microbes to fight off the bad bacteria and the bad viruses. So with urbanization and industrialization of our farms, we have seen an increase in growth hormones, antibiotics, pesticides, genetic modification. And when we think that those, don't harm us, they do, because if they're being put in our food and we're eating it, it's getting passed on to us. So, that can create a weakened immune system. And if you are someone who has been on a lot of antibiotics for whatever reason, it is highly important that you work with your medical professional on rebuilding your microbiome with probiotics and prebiotics. It's super important because that is going to be how you get and stay healthy. So the microbiota, as I mentioned, it does so much, and I could spend so much time just talking about that. And this is, as I said, this is just going to be a brief overview on why it's important. But through the gut and brain axis, they're directly connected with the appearance and evolution of neurological and psychiatric disorders. So the dysbiosis, when our microbiome becomes dysregulated, there is a direct connection and evolution of neurological and psychiatric disorders such as depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder. There's even research on how it may be related to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and even schizophrenia and autism. So it's, there's still a lot of research that's going on. And, what is out there is definitely showing the connections. And as I mentioned, it's because we have all of these neurotransmitters that are being created in our gut. So dietary factors are also crucial in our health and well-being. So our body is naturally built to heal itself, and we have a lot of intrinsic like we know like what our body needs. It's just instinctual. You know, sometimes we might just have a craving, like, man, I really need, for me, this last week with it being so hot, like I have been craving fruit. And part of that, it has not just been any fruit, it's been like watermelon and cucumbers and, you know, grapes. And, you know, it's probably because it's so hot outside and those foods are high in water. So, you know, you can eat your water by eating, you know, cucumbers and watermelon and grapes and things that are high in a water content. So that's why we have food cravings, is our body is craving a food because we are in need of something. One of the things that you can do right now, if you want to improve your microbiome and gut health, is pay attention to what your cravings are, okay? Pay attention to what makes you feel good, what makes you feel bad. And sometimes it's even a good thing to use some sort of food diary or food tracker to see what you're eating. How much are you consuming? And it could be very surprising. You know, I did it one time. I didn't even realize how often at one point, that we were eating out. And, you know, that's another thing that, you know, didn't even bring up, is as part of our lifestyle, is if you have a long commute, or long work hours, you might not always get to have that home cooked meal. So, you know, there are strategies to work around that, and help you to eat more healthy. But tracking what you're eating is super important, because you might be thinking you're getting enough fruits and vegetables. You might think that you are getting enough of something, and you might not be getting as much as you think. You might be getting way more than what you need. So those are 3 things to help get started. And I always like to tell people, once you realize what you need to change, don't go throw everything out. Pick one area that you are willing to make a change in. The example is, if you are a soda drinker and you want to cut back on how much soda you're drinking, use the crowding out method. So start out small. So you see success, because if you can make small steps and be consistent over time, you're going to see that you can be consistent, and you're going to want to stay focused on doing those things. And it's not going to be one of those, I'm going to just cut everything out on a Monday, and then by Friday you've drank a 24 pack of soda. So, and you feel like a failure. So crowding out is important. So with soda, okay, if you drink 6 cans of soda a day, begin by just reducing it by 1 can and increasing, you know, for every, you know, for the first week, replace that 1 can with a glass of water. And then the following week, reduce in another one and another, until you're down to not drinking soda at all. And It's the same way with food. If you want to increase eating green leafy vegetables, and it's not something you're familiar with, then one, find a recipe or two that you like and just incorporate those just for this week, and just make it a priority that, like, you're going to try one or two new recipes with green leafy vegetables a week instead of throwing out everything you've got and trying to rebuild all from scratch when you really have no idea what you're doing. Because let's face it, sometimes it takes a lot of education and experimenting in your kitchen to know what you like and what you don't like in order to eat something that you're not used to eating. And, incorporating things that are fermented, such as kefir or kimchi. Go to your local farmer's market. I know I have gone to farmers markets in my area of Virginia, and there are people who make fermented vegetables of all different types. And fermentation is different than pickling. So you really do want that fermented food, because that is what's going to help build up your microbiome. It's going to help create all of the good stuff to regrow in your gut. So kimchi, as I mentioned, kefir, which is a yogurt drink. Yogurt, of course, they have different probiotics and prebiotics that you can purchase in different stores and online. Definitely look at all of the reviews and make sure that it's coming from a clean source. Because again, what's the purpose of taking something if it is not pure? Because that's what got us in trouble to begin with. If we're taking something that is genetically modified or created with chemicals, it's defeating the purpose. So definitely check to see how it is made, and look at all of the ratings. Fermented teas are also good. So there's all different types of things that you can find in your store, but look for fermented. And even maybe think about taking a class on how to ferment or pickle different foods. So if you are interested in exploring a little bit more on your gut health and how to begin your wellness journey, and making those lifestyle changes that can be really tricky and sometimes scary, because we often aren't sure where to start or begin, or even how to navigate something because it's completely new to us. Send me a message and I will gladly help you with that process. And, stay tuned. I'm going to be having other webinars coming up each Wednesday at 7. So some of them might be recorded, some of them might be live, but like and share this one, and I hope to see you soon.